The Lone Star State, an energy powerhouse, leading the nation in oil, gas, wind, and soon solar. How then are we home to one of the most fragile, unpredictable power grids in the nation? How will we survive this summer? And how do we prevent what happened 2 years ago?
Well, our historic winter weather outbreak continues here in Central Texas
From happening again. For 2 weeks, reporting from across the state what's new now and what's next in the power of Texas.
Renewables. We're hearing that word a lot lately, but what does it mean? Well, it's short for renewable energy. We're talking wind and solar power, which we rely on more than ever to help keep the lights on and the air conditioning on. Well, check this out. Wind and solar by far the state's biggest renewables. Texas leads the nation in wind power, and in the next few years, we're expected to be #1 in solar as well. But there are limitations, and renewables remain overshadowed by one of the most abundant resources on the planet, Texas natural gas. Yet the growth of renewables is being credited with the grid holding up so well this summer. Our Amber Hughes has that story.
Even though Texas is known for oil and gas production, the state has become a leader in wind power, renewables becoming an important part of the energy mix.
Our population is growing a great deal in Texas, so our energy needs are really expanding greatly.
More sunlight equals more solar power generation.
This is a 72-cell solar panel.
As the co-founder of a solar company, Robert Miggins is all for the benefits solar energy provides.
The sun is shining typically when our overall statewide electricity needs are the greatest.
Like recent weeks when record-breaking summer heat led to a record-breaking demand for energy statewide. At the same time, solar and wind farms performed at a critical moment, producing more than 31,000 megawatts of renewable energy, the most ever.
Solar is a really important part of how we're meeting our overall statewide ERCOT grid energy requirements.
This summer, on an average day, solar and wind combined are generating more than a quarter of the Texas grid's total power. The Lone Star State is the second largest producer of solar energy, only behind California. Texas leading the nation in wind-generated electricity.
For the short term, we're going to keep gaining in wind use.
Dr. Taylor Collins is an energy economics researcher at the University of Incarnate Word. He says the process to get renewable energy across Texas isn't flawless.
There's occasionally some bottlenecks where we don't really have the transmission lines to distribute from West Texas through the entirety of the state as reliably as we need to through some of the more peak energy hours.
But when it's not sunny, solar's reliability gets shaky.
At least in the short term, the biggest problem with the renewable sector or the renewable approach is that the battery technology is not there to support it.
When it comes to getting power quickly, where and when we need it, Dr. Collins says natural gas is currently our most reliable energy source. Although there's benefits to renewables growth, he warns relying on imported parts for production could become a problem.
The bigger portion of that mix that they become, the more vulnerable we become to some of these geopolitical components, since we've offshored a lot of their production elsewhere across the globe.
Dr. Collins expects it will be decades before Texas becomes independent of fossil fuels.
I think we're going to have to keep some level of natural gas because we need something we can turn on and off. Right? That's the thing about wind and solar. You can't choose to turn it on and off as you need.
We know our weather day-to-day plays a critical role in renewable energy production. Despite the sweltering heat and Arctic intrusions, energy experts say weather in Texas, well, it's ideal. Chief Meteorologist standing right here, right. Ricky Cody. From sunshine and wind, we have it all here in Texas.
Sure do.
Right?
And typically year round, right? There are some days where the wind's not as impressive or possibly not seeing the sun, right? Yeah. Typically, we have days where that's the case. But let's walk you back to 2022. The solar and wind leaders, when you combine both of those renewable energy productions, Texas, as Brett talked about just moments ago, #1, beating California. Doesn't that sound nice? Beating Iowa, Oklahoma, and Kansas. So yeah, we've got the wind, we've got the sun. Let's take a look at where our solar electricity generation was yesterday, where it'll be today and tomorrow. Look at our national ranking. Second, we were able to actually produce 94,000 megawatt hours of energy based on solar. Rather, that's today. And then the forecast tomorrow, even more impressive. Now, granted, we still have to deal with the heat. I get that. But this is certainly good news. As you look at our wind electricity generation, this is again from our partners at Climate Central. They give these updates and forecasts every morning. But we're looking at possibly generating 590,000 megawatts of power. And we're looking at to stay #1 in our national ranking. What I love about solar and wind is that they complement each other. Believe it or not, the sun's not out, right, Lisette? So what we do have is wind. Look at this, the ERCOT fuel mix this morning, wind making up 40.2% of the energy production. So they're complementary of each other. We'll talk more about this, but we have to talk about the heat too. That's coming up.
All right, thanks, Ricky. Well, every day for the next 2 weeks, Spectrum News is committed to taking a closer look at the power of Texas. Geothermal energy, what is it, and could it be the power of the future? Tomorrow on Spectrum News 1, we'll dig deep into the latest research by Texans to learn more about this emerging sector of energy. See more of these stories on the Power Grid, either on the Spectrum News app or by watching on the connected TV app.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more refreshing stories about your community, click the subscribe button over here. You can also download our Spectrum News app and tune in to channel 55 on Dish and DirecTV to get live news coverage, weather updates every 10 minutes, and more. We'll see you then.